Hey El Paso, it's Ben from Sun City Live Streams, and I got something special for you today. I'm standing here with Mr. Joe Molinar, who is running for City Council in District 4 of the Northeast of El Paso. And Mr. Molinar brings a lot of special talents to this office once he gets in. So we're going to talk to Joe Molinar and find out what exactly it is that his interests are and why he's running. So Joe, thank you for your time, taking out and give us the opportunity to interview you. I know you're a busy man. The campaign is keeping you busy, clearly.
Yes.
Tell us, what is it that inspired you to run for City Council?
Mainly because I care deeply about El Paso and I care deeply about the citizens of Northeast El Paso and what it's about, what's happening and what is not happening as well. And so my hat is in the ring to win District 4 because I do sincerely care.
So, Mr. Molinar, how long have you lived in the northeast side of town?
I have lived in the northeast side of town approximately, over 50 years. Over 50 years. From childhood, my teenage years, going to Andrews High School, going to University of Texas at El Paso, coming back here when I joined the police department. I lived out here, brought my family here. At that time, it was the east side. The east side, we did live there for just a short amount of time, and we came here to the northeast and have been here ever since.
Many of you guys know the city does a chime-in survey. They do it annually to make sure that the people of El Paso can have a voice and voice their thoughts about what their desires are for the city. One of the number one things on that survey that usually comes back is public safety. Mr. Molinar here has 28 years in the El Paso Police Department.
Yes.
You have that, that's close to your heart.
Yes, very much. Thank you very much for asking. That's a great question. Yes, it's a total of 28 years. I did 22 years with the city of El Paso and 6 years with the Socorro Independent School District Police Department. But still, it's 28 years total service, public dedicated service to the citizens of El Paso and the place in Socorro ISD. So yes, I'm very passionate about I'm going to call it the blue budget. I certainly do not want it defunded in any way. I want it to defend the blue budget. And the other thing too, what's happening right now is everybody's saying that Chief Allen needs to leave. No, that's not correct. He is not the person at fault. A lot of times what's going to end up happening is those people, unfortunately, that do not comply with authority are sometimes it doesn't go well. That's the best way I can put it. So yes, accountability. If you're going to talk accountability, we need to talk accountability across the board, not just at the very top.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair statement. You don't hear that often from people that are officers that say, okay, if we're going to be accountable, let's look at it from both sides. If we're going to look at it, let's look at it from both sides. But you're right, absolutely right. I mean, with your many years of experience, I'm sure you've encountered some things that were not kosher, right? And I was reading on your website that we've been investigated. What were the positions you had? You were
okay. I was initially after the police academy. I was a police officer, and I was assigned where? The Northeast Regional Command. Back then it was the Northeast Substation on Hondo Pass, but it was a great place to work. I learned a lot. And that time there used to be a lot of field training officers who had many years of experience, and I can say I absorbed a lot of that experience, but then on my own, I also had experiences here. Later on, I got promoted. I became a detective. I became a homicide detective, and I did that for 4 years. And I can tell you, for the record, is that my clearance rate for homicides was one of the highest in that unit at that time. Of course, I'm not there anymore. Then later on, I was served in the Internal Affairs Division. Once again, holding officers and any police personnel accountable for their actions, their omissions, and things like that. I became a supervisor, and where did I get assigned? The Northeast again. Great, fantastic. Out of my 4 years as a police supervisor, I did 3 years what's called the B shift or the Baker shift, which means I worked from 7 o'clock at night to 3 o'clock in the morning. Why those hours? Because that's when a lot of activity is happening in the city, those nighttime hours. And I had a fantastic set of officers that we led the way in arrests, citations, subject checks, vehicle checks. And it's not that I'm stat driven. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about deliverance of effectiveness, a deliverance of your taxpayer dollars. You want that hard-earned taxpayer dollars put to good use. Later on, I did become promoted. I became a police lieutenant, went to patrol, went to special operations. I came back to the Northeast, and that's where later on I worked in patrol and got transferred to what's called crimes against children. So we had the jurisdiction of anything that happened, sexual and physical abuse cases under 17. So unfortunately, You have to have that type of expertise. So I had great detectives, great supervisors, and great personnel supporting our mission there in crimes against children.
Fantastic. Going back when he was a young buck, you were also a Marine, weren't you?
Yes, that's right. So I grew up in this area here, just near Veterans Park where we're at today. And so I made the decision when I was 13 years old, when I was at Andrews High School, that I was a freshman at Andrews High School, that I wanted to become a Marine. Why? Because I saw two recruiters. They were dressed in their dress blues. And back then, even though they said, hey, come back in 3 or 4 years, great. Well, I didn't want to wait. There was no internet then. What's the next best thing? You go to your library. And there you check out books, you do your research. So at 13 years old, I was already doing research, and I knew what I was going to do. So from then on, that's what I did. So after graduation, I graduated in May, so I enlisted in July, and I took off and did 4 years of great honor and privilege. I got to tell you, a great honor and privilege. I'll say that twice, is that I was a member working in the White House under President Ronald Reagan's administration. I was a crew chief on Marine One. Got to meet the president, got to meet the first lady on many occasions. It was just a privilege and a high honor. My parents were proud of me. I was proud of myself. My family was proud of me. I know I came out on the news a couple of times, but that's history now. But it was a great honor, and I still serve my community, and I'll do anything for the Marine Corps that I positively can to recruit, promote, things like that.
So, Mr. Molinar, tell us about what your platform is for the City Council. What do you plan to do for the Northeast and the city in general?
Okay, my platform is very simply, and it contains 3 components. Number one, and first and foremost, is public safety. What are we doing about public safety? To include the fire department, fire medical. It's not just the police. So what are we doing? How are we spending that money? And which I think right now we are spending it very well. Recently, City Council said we're going to absorb code compliance. So that's approximately 60 people, their fleet, their maintenance, their operation stuff. So yes, our budget had to go up. Okay, that's a different story, but what are we doing exactly? And I want to say I compliment Chief Greg Allen and his administrative staff for what the work they're doing. El Paso, as you know, has always, or for the last couple of years, has been voted a safe, large city. And I believe in that. And I think we need to keep that. It brings integrity to our city, to our citizens that live here every day, raise families and things like that. So I want to defend the blue budget, that's for sure. Number two, I believe in fiscal responsibility. For example, the issue to include debt management. What are we doing about debt management? If we do not start now, our debt is in the billions. That's with a B, not an M, with a B. If we don't start now, what's going to happen in 5 years? What's going to happen in 10 years? We're going to be more in debt. And when does it end? Certificates of obligation being issued for quality of life projects. No. Those things, certificates of obligations, were designed to be made for emergency purposes, emergency projects. For example, the flood of 2006 here in El Paso, unprecedented. Yes, I could see the issuance of a certificate of obligation for roadways, for emergency operation, things like that. Yes, that I would vote for. If we're going to have a certificate of obligation, it's not emergency, I'm going to vote no. Third component of my platform is very simple. The mountains behind me are the Franklin Mountains. They're our gem. They're our culture. They're our identity. They've been here for thousands of years. I want them to be preserved. I don't want them to be encroached upon. I don't want them to be developed, things like that. I've helped in different areas in the past. For example, Save Our Sierras, where we purchased, not me, but I with others helped to have the city purchase that land. I believe it's 300 plus acres. So right now there's a topic of conservation easement. I hope that goes through. I don't know what the delay is. It's already been quite some time that we haven't got that. The Lost Dog Trail, worked religiously with the Bonarts on that and others to make that a reality. The voters back in May of 2019 said overwhelmingly say yes to the preservation of Lost Dog Trail, and I can say I'm proud of myself for the help that I did to making that happen, besides just voting for it.
All right, so what are your thoughts about the big developers of El Paso? And there's some famous names people know. How do you feel about the way the city approaches those, and what do you think about how, the incentives and things like that?
Well, we all know that there's several major developers. I'm not talking about small, major developers here in El Paso, which is fine. I'm sure they're great people, great families, and things like that. What my issue and my concern is this, and what's happening behind the scenes. Why is it that a few families benefit the most from us as taxpayers, and what do we get in return? Great example is the Great Wolf Lodge, 44 acres of land in exchange for over 2,000 acres of land in Northeast El Paso, in District 4, by the way. It doesn't equate. It doesn't make any sense at all. And who's going to benefit? One specific family. Now, that's what's called a TIRZ, T-I-R-Z. I don't agree with that. Why are you creating a TIRZ on desert land? It doesn't make any sense at all. The fact that it was extended from 30 years to 50 years does not set well with me at all. We need to find out what happened, where the failure was, and we need to correct that.
Mr. Molinar, so talking to some others in El Paso, and especially in the Northeast, the big concern is the development, as far as economic development, stores and retail and things like this, even jobs, even like on railroad or what have you. What are your thoughts about the Northeast, and how should we move forward with the economic development that we in the Northeast to help expand?
I am all for economic development in the Northeast. However, when I say I'm all for that, I want it done the right way. I don't want, once again, focus just on certain people, certain families, certain organizations. I want it spread, that it's well managed, that it's doable for low developers, or excuse me, low businesses, small businesses, that they can thrive, they can have a start, they can thrive, and they continue, maybe spread out. And that's what I'm looking for. A diverse business. Why do we have to leave the Northeast to drive to the east side? Why do we have to go over Trans Mountain to drive to the west side, when we should, what they have, we should have here in Northeast El Paso? And that just drives me crazy. Yeah. I just don't like it, and I can't stand it. I don't have those answers, but I want the answers.
And another thing on that note is, when you talk to people about the east side, they're like, "Oh man, the traffic is terrible. That's why we love the Northeast, because it's not so crowded." And is that the idea, right? To bring stuff here, but keep it in a manageable way, but yet thrive at the same time.
Right. For example, the Northeast, they have certain arterials to include McCombs, Railroad, Dyer Street, US 54, Spur 601, the connection of Loop 375, and those are all great. Well thought out, well planned. Recently, the Loop 375 from Hondo Pass north was expanded, going north and south. Great idea. However, if you go back over here near Sean Haggerty, they need to have a continuation. That has been sitting there for quite some time. And yes, I know that's a TxDOT project, but still, we need to get that going. And yes, you're right. We don't have the traffic woes and complaints and problems or issues that maybe other parts of the city do. But you know what? I think with good management, great ideas, we can avoid that together.
All right, Mr. Molinar, thank you for your time. I know people can find you at Joe Molinar 4, the number 4, district4.com, and they can find you also on Facebook, correct, at Joe Molinar?
Yes, sir, that's correct. So visit our website, visit our Facebook page, like it. If you have any comments, suggestions, solutions, please feel free to make those comments and solutions. Don't just like it. Don't just throw something negative. If you're part of the solution, then that's great. Don't be part of the problem.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to say to the citizens of El Paso before we finish?
The Northeast is the gem. You need to realize that. I want it to shine even more.
All right, guys. That was Mr. Joe Molinar, running for District 4, lifelong resident of the Northeast El Paso. I encourage you to get out and vote. Early voting starts, I believe, October 13th. So get out and vote as soon as possible. Let's get in some new leadership. Let's take El Paso and the Northeast to another level, and Mr. Molinar can get us there. Thank you guys for watching. Please share, and we'll be talking to you soon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.